You know, artificial intelligence is absolutely everywhere these days. It promises to make our lives easier, more efficient, even more fun. And that promise is especially tempting when you're planning something like a vacation. But here's the catch. As AI gets better at creating, it also gets better at, well, faking it. So let's just dive right in. The big question we're tackling today is a real head-scratcher. Is AI this incredible digital genie ready to whip up your perfect trip? Or is it just the newest, shiniest tool for scammers trying to cash in on your travel dreams? And you can really see the two sides of the coin here. On the one hand, you've got things like Julia, Rome's official AI guide, which people are calling an expert and reliable guide. You see folks from Italy for Real saying AI can conjure up these amazing itineraries. But then, on the other side, you've got these stark warnings from places like the Rick Steves travel forums and even the New York Times about a new frontier for travel scammers. It's a lot. So let's start with that darker side because it's a very real thing. The problem of fake AI-generated guidebooks. And listen, this isn't some what-if scenario for the future. It's happening right now on some of the biggest online stores you use every day. And this right here, this is what it looks like in the real world. This is a real customer's experience from a New York Times story. Ms. Kolsky saw a France guidebook with tons of 5-star reviews, thought she was getting a great deal. But what showed up was basically a Wikipedia article someone printed out. No real advice, no cool itineraries, nothing useful. It's the oldest trick in the book, the old bait and switch, but now it's supercharged by AI. So how are they getting away with this? Well, partly by trying to trick you with names that sound just familiar enough. People on travel forums started pointing out these AI authors with hilariously obvious fake names like Mike Steves. I mean, come on, it's such a clear attempt to ride the coattails of the real beloved travel expert, Rick Steves. Okay, so how can you spot one of these scams out there? Travelers have flagged a few key red flags to look for. First, those ridiculously generic author names. Second, if you can preview the text, does it feel vague or repetitive? Kind of like a school report. Big warning sign. Third, be really suspicious of a huge number of 5-star reviews that all pop up at once and sound exactly the same. And finally, just look at the cover. Does it look like a cheap knockoff of a famous brand you already know? These are the classic signs you're probably looking at AI-generated junk. All this kind of begs a bigger question, right? If AI is powerful enough to create this whole mess, could it also be the thing that helps us clean it up? Or are we as humans still the best defense we have when it comes to judging what's real and what's not? Well, it turns out a 2024 study from Cambridge University decided to put this to the test. Researchers took a bunch of research papers, some written by humans, some generated by AI, and they had both humans and AI review them. They wanted to know two things. First, who could actually spot the fakes? And second, who was better at judging their quality? And the answers? Well, they're pretty eye-opening. So, finding number one, who was best at just spotting the AI-generated text? If you look at the chart, human reviewers, they did pretty well. But then look at GPT-4, this super powerful general-purpose AI. It was actually terrible at spotting text made by other AIs. The real winner here was something called GPT-0, which is an AI built specifically to detect AI content. So that tells us specialized tools can work, which is good to know. But here, this is where it gets really interesting. Because spotting AI text is one thing, but judging its quality, that's a whole other ballgame. And this chart says it all. The human reviewers consistently and easily identified the AI-generated work as being low quality. They could just tell it was junk. But GPT-4? It was completely blind. It literally could not tell the difference between a brilliant human insight and total AI nonsense. So the big takeaway here, the thing we really need to remember is this. We humans are still far, far better at judging the quality and authenticity of something than the AIs that are creating it. We have a gut feeling, a sense of when something is off or just lacks substance, in a way that AI, at least for now, just doesn't. This idea that human judgment is so important becomes even clearer when we look at where we get our advice online. With AI pumping out endless generic junk, we find ourselves drawn to trusted human voices more and more. And that brings us to the modern arbiters of taste, influencers. Why do we trust them? Well, it all boils down to a very human, unwritten contract. First, let's just get on the same page about what an influencer actually is. It's not just someone who's famous. The academic definition really nails it. They're independent, they provide content that feels authentic, and they build a very specific, carefully tended to audience.
The whole profession is built on this perception of authenticity.
And this comparison just illustrates the difference perfectly. Think about a traditional celebrity, an actor, an athlete. Their brand is built on being extraordinary, on being famous for their craft. We admire them, but kind of from a distance. An influencer's brand, though, is built on the exact opposite. It's about being relatable, like an everyday person you could know. For them, influencing isn't just a side hustle, it is their job. Their entire value comes from that feeling of connection and trust.
And this quote from travel blogger Kelly Nakagama is a perfect example of that authentic voice in action. She starts with the awe and wonder, sure, but then she gives you a brutally honest, practical take. The Spanish Steps are overrated and crowded. She's not just spitting out facts like an AI would, she's sharing a real, personal, and trustworthy opinion. This is the kind of stuff that builds a loyal audience.
So, how is this trust actually built? It's not magic, there's a pretty clear process. First, an influencer finds their niche. Then, they create content that feels real and original over and over again. They engage with their audience, building a community. But the most important step, and the most fragile one, is that last one, maintaining that credibility. Because trust is an unwritten contract with their audience. And believe me, when that contract gets broken, things can fall apart fast. There was a big scandal with some Singaporean influencers who got paid to badmouth companies, but they pretended it was their own honest opinion. Once the truth got out, it was a disaster. They lost followers, they had to make public apologies, because trust, once you lose it, is incredibly hard to earn back. Okay, so we've got this flood of low-quality AI stuff on one side, and this very delicate ecosystem of human trust on the other. So, what do we do? How do we navigate all this and become smarter consumers of information, whether it's travel guides or anything else?
Well, scholar Howard Gardner actually offers a really solid framework. First, he says understand the standards of professions that are literally built around finding the truth, like science or journalism. Second, don't just dismiss influencers out of hand, but be critical. Test what they're saying. Check their track record. Third, and this one is huge, remember that the number of followers someone has means absolutely nothing about whether they're accurate or truthful. And finally, ask yourself the ultimate question. Is this creator willing to risk their own popularity to say something that's true? It all boils down to this one simple but really powerful idea: merit over multitudes. We should judge content on its quality, its honesty, its substance, not just on how many people liked it or how many followers someone has. Which leaves us right here with this one last question for you. As the lines between what's human and what's artificial, what's authentic and what's fake, just get blurrier and blurrier, who are you going to trust? And really, the answer isn't just about how you plan your next vacation. It's about how all of us decide what's real in a world that feels increasingly unreal.